Good morning, everybody. Now we are starting officially. So welcome to this special Tabadul on the occasion of the Day of the Mediterranean 2025, and thank you for being part of the AMWAJ community. My name is Claudia Rodríguez. I'm a press officer at AMWAJ and REVOLVE, and I will be moderating this session today as we explore the power of independent cross-border environmental journalism with a team of 4 journalists currently working in the field that will be presented very soon. So just for those who don't know maybe AMWAJ that much, I will introduce the Alliance. We are a non-profit initiative from the communication group REVOLVE that brings together different actors from all over the Mediterranean to promote dialogue and cooperation on sustainability, water and environmental in the Mediterranean region. And Tabadul is how we call our events. We try to do twice a year these kind of events to gather our community for a time and space to connect between each other and also to share inspiring initiatives, promote knowledge exchange and best practices among journalists. So during this session today, you will gain insights into how cross-border teams collaborate effectively to produce independent environmental investigations across the Mediterranean. As I was mentioning, we are here today with a team of 4 journalists from Turkey, Greece, and Italy. I will introduce them very shortly because they will have the time to present more in detail in a few minutes. So Alev Karakartal from Turkey, editor-in-chief of Yeşil Gazete. Anastasia Karadimitri, journalist at Inside Story and Journalism Initiative from Greece. Burak Altınok, freelance journalist and independent fact-checker from Turkey as well. And finally, Sofia Turati, freelance journalist and co-founder of Maria Media from Italy. So they are here with us today to present their ongoing cross-border investigation that started actually in the AMWAJ community. This is a very nice story for us. So a simple exchange through a message on the WhatsApp group finally led to a powerful collaboration that we supported editorially by AMWAJ because we will be republishing the story. And this investigation has been also supported financially by Journalismfund Europe. So we also have here in the webinar today with us Anna Owens representing Journalismfund. So she can also present later on during the Q&A opportunities for journalists that are currently ongoing. And they started to explore on the impact of sea snot in the Marmara Sea, Greece, and the Italian coast. So the investigation is at the moment currently ongoing. So they are here with us to present all of their work. And after the presentation, of course, we'll have time for exchange with them for a Q&A. So please stay with us and don't hesitate to put your questions in the chat for that. So welcome the 4 of you, welcome everybody, and the floor is yours now.
And it's my turn?
Yes.
Yeah, okay,
Hello,
thank
Alev.
you.
You can go ahead,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you so much. Hello, guys. My name is Alev Karakartal, and we are happy to be here to meet all you are. Firstly, I'm speaking to you from my kitchen at home with my cats and dogs, and you can hear their voices sometime. You know, when you work freelance and don't have a fixed office, these things can happen. Please excuse for this. And first of all, we would like to thank the Journalismfund team for making this project possible. We'd also like to thank AMWAJ organizing this meeting on the occasion of Mediterranean Day, giving us the opportunity to present our researches and share our experience. We are an international team of 4 people from Turkey, Greece, and Italy. Apart from me, Burak, my partner from Turkey, Anastasia from Greece, and Sofia from Italy. And additionally, as Anastasia works for an institution in Greece, her editors are also supporting the Greek part of the study. Since the end of June and the beginning of July, we have been working on phenomenon of the marine mucilage in our seas. I'll try to explain now why we choose to research this topic, how we worked as a team, the challenges we faced, and how we overcome them, as well as the mistakes and shortcomings we made during the study period and our strengths. My teammate will also talk about their own work, the data we collect, the results, and our publication policy. And at the beginning, as Turkish journalists, we experienced the 2021 mucilage disaster in the Sea of Marmara as a huge shock. As climate ecology reporters, we knew about sea snot is in our seas and we are covering them, of course, but actually, I must admit that we were unaware of how dire the situation was until it surfaced in such a traumatic way. Following the shock, this year, we decided to examine the action taken, the plans made, and what has happened to date to put the current state of Marmara under the microscope to discuss possible solutions and to undertake a research project on this subject. You know, although the Marmara Sea is seen as an island, inland sea, inland sea, it affects the Aegean and Black Seas via the straits. In other words, what happens in the Marmara Sea directly affects these seas and vice versa. And we knew that the mucilage spread to the Aegean and Black Seas via straits. We also learned that mucilage had appeared in the seas Greece and Italy, and that Italy's Adriatic coasts had been largely spared from mucilage thanks to measures taken. It's not the same in Turkey. Therefore, we thought of this as a transnational project covering the seas of Greece and Italy, rather than a local project. First, we made a call on the WhatsApp group of AMWAJ, which brings together Mediterranean climate and ecology journalists, you know that, and of which we are also a part. Among those who responded, we agreed to work with Anastasia and Sofia. We then refined the rough draft of the project with their contributions, turning it into a detailed and well-planned proposal, and we applied for a grant from Journalismfund for investigative freelance journalists and were deemed worthy of support. Actually, these Actually, the results of our research will also be published in AMWAJ REVOLVE page. So you'll see what we have achieved. In this opening speech, I'd like to emphasize our shortcoming and oversights. So I believe we can share the important experience with our colleagues who will undertake similar research project. After the project was approved about Journalismfund, we occasionally encountered problems in the early months due to reasons such as the different schedules of people not in the same location, other projects that as freelance workers were involved in or running. The situation is Italy being different despite the similar sludge and resources in Greece and Turkey. This made it difficult to focus. Sometimes we also had to deal with the disadvantages or communicating in language other than our mother tongue. However, thanks to email and WhatsApp groups, we created our Zoom meetings and especially our frequent phone calls. In the final stage, we managed to overcome these challenges to a large extent during the process. Another challenge I can mention that for the Turkish team especially was this. Towards the end of the research, we realized how important some items we had left out the requirements list and budget were for our work. For example, we should have worked with a graphic designer or illustrator and added the purchase of certain programs to the budget for the publication of our research. These would have enabled us to create much more impressive outputs, such as animated maps, photographs, interactive markings of relevant data or satellite images, and many other complaining visuals. We can edit videos and create graphics. We have created a very detailed dataset and will use in our research. Still, we are disappointed that we'll not be able to achieve the creative visuals we had in mind. The other shortcoming in this regard was that we were too late to take advantage of the Journalism Fund's team of expert advisors, actually. Had we done so in time, we could have received support on how to resolve this problem. We were unable to do so. Our excuse maybe is that the difficulties we experienced in establish a common language and understanding within the team, and synchronizing the timing of our work also had an impact, although we overcome it later. Thirdly, Sea Snot wasn't seen much in our seas during the summer. Therefore, during this period, we focused not on what was visible, but on its causes and consequences. But it's now, this year, its reappearance in the Sea of Marmara end of the September and beginning of October again. And our consequent need to refer back to our sources caused delays in writing, preparation, and publication. So our planned publication schedule for late October was delayed, and we were unable to begin writing articles and preparing the visuals in mid-November. And I'd like to say about something about Journalism Fund. I must say the Journalism Fund is really good support for freelance journalists. There is no demanding application process. Once your application is accepted, they provide all kinds of flexibility and support, and they regularly communicate with you to see if you have any shortcoming and, if possible, try to help find a solution. They were also very understanding about the publication delay. We are grateful for this. Thank you, Anna. There may be minor differences for other organizations, but my advice to freelance journalists here who have not worked with the Journalism Fund before is to do thorough desk research to clearly identify your needs before applying. As this will be an international project, Journalism Fund required this, I recommend carefully selecting your partner, endeavoring to get to know each other well, because you'll often not be physically at the same place and the same time. I also advise clearly understanding and articulating your needs and what you can offer at a very early stage. We managed to do this the hard way, losing quite a bit of time, but I advise it. Our research will be published in AMWAJ REVOLVE, as well as Turkey's leading climate and ecology publications. The Greece section will be published in Greece and the Italy section in Italy. If possible, we'll try to ensure that each group's local work is also published in other countries. We hope this research has given a rough idea to those who wish to work on this topic after us. At the end, I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank my teammates. It's natural for people who don't know each other and have not worked together before to experience problems, at least in Italy. However, we were able to resolve these issues with mutual understanding, sometimes drifting apart, but without straying from our goal and without losing our discipline. I hope that the friendship and solidarity that has developed among us will continue. After me, Burak from the Turkish team will provide detailed information about our work, and then Anastasia and Sofia will describe the situation in their own countries. My time is limited, is here. I can discuss the many lessons we've learned and the recommendation we can offer. But if we have time left at the end of the meeting, I'd happy to share some more advice we have learned from experience. And thank you all of us for listening to me. And is Burak.
Thank you, Alev, and uh, can you hear me? Okay, okay. Thank you, Alev, and thank you everyone who is here for listening our project. So I will try to explain Turkish side what we did, what is our data, and what we learn. Uh, So first of all, I want to start with our interviews. We received the work of people studying mucilage and compiled a comparative list. These include marine biologists, professors, and public health academics. You can see the like local people, municipalities, activists, a lot of people we we met. There are also two universities in Turkey that operate research vessels and study the Sea of Marmara. We contact one of them, Middle East Technical University, and had the opportunity to board their vessel during their uh, field research. In every province we visited, we met with activists and connected with civil society organizations. We also spoke with people working in the sector, such as fishermen. We also met with municipalities and water management units in each province. We spoke with the local communities most affected by this issue wherever possible and stayed in contact with them. In total, we conducted more than 80 interviews. We also travel, we organize trip to 5 provinces in the Marmara region. And also, if you think we live in Istanbul, we can count as 6 cities. And it will show in next to Marmara Sea. So we visited all of these places. So you can see almost every place in Marmara we visited. But okay, what did we see? We saw pollution. We observed on site the Ergene, which is in Tekirdağ, and Nilüfer River, which is in Bursa, and Gönen River, which is in Balıkesir, and Dilderesi in Kocaeli, next to Marmara, all of which flow into the Marmara. We placed a GoPro in the water and recorded the underwater footage. We will share all of this in our news. This photo is an example from the Ergene taken by me. You can see that some parts of the water appear white while other looks pink. Above the water sits a paint factory. The entire stream was like this. Factories and the lack of oversight are killing the Ergene, the life within it, and ultimately the Marmara Sea. There was no different in the Nilüfer either. People use its polluted water to irrigate their garden, and these products are then sold. Dilderesi is in Kocaeli. I walked along it from start to finish. I mean, I was with car, but I stopped like every 100 meters and I check what is going on. Uh, At its source, fish were swimming, but once the industrial factories began, the color of the water changed. And what did we see? In a decade treatment, look, nearly 30 million people live in the Marmara region. You can see the population by province. Across this province, there are 203 wastewater treatment plants with warning capacities, and biological treatment appears to be the most common. If you don't stop pollution and if you don't properly treat the wastewater, how can you expect a clean Marmara Sea? To prevent this, the Ministry of Environment and Urbanization published the Marmara Sea Action Plan in 2021. The plan consisted of 22 measures. At a meeting held 5 years later, they announced the status of the 22 measures. 18 of them had reacted 100%. The ones that had not were advanced biological treatment plants, you can see, 1.4%. This is a bit iconic because the very first thing that should have done was probably to ensure that 100% of the wastewater is treated. Pollution is a major factor in the formation of mucilage. Another factor is oxygen level. And in the Marmara Sea, there is currently no oxygen below a depth of 200-250 meters. Before 2015, there was. If you look up this purple area, you will see. And this is really new research from this university. And another factor is climate change. The Marmara Sea is warming every year. In the map on the left, you can see that the Marmara has warmed by 2-3 degrees. Just look at the colors. In the table on the right, you can see the average sea temperatures by year. So, I don't know, can you see my thing? But it's here, Marmara, and you can see like where it is here somewhere. You can understand by colors. And other and really important thing actually, overfishing, because mucilage has caused serious damage to fish in the Marmara Sea and the Bosphorus. After 2021, fish species dropped by about 24% and fish biomass decreased by around 20%. Many fishers had to return to shore because their nets were covered with mucilage, which caused big economic losses, and the fishing season ended early. At the same time, heavy and high technology fishing, especially purse seine and troll fishing, destroy fish eggs, catch baby fish, and breaks the food chain. These reduce the number of species and also has mucilage form, creating a harmful cycle. Because this type of fishing damage the sea ecosystem so much, the amount of commercial fish in Turkey has become very low, and right now Turkish fishers have to go African waters. So this is our publication plan. We will publish we have a lot of data, we have a lot of interviews, so it is not possible to publish, of course, just in one news. So we will publish 5 news, at least we are thinking like this right now. It can be 6, who knows. So we will publish exactly like this table. I think I finished my time, so thank you for listening. We will take all questions end of the presentation. So, Anastasia.
Hello, everyone. I'm Anastasia Karadimitri, a journalist based in Athens, working for the independent investigative media outlets Inside Story and Journalism Initiative, and I will be sharing the Greek part of our cross-border investigation. It's a pleasure to be part of this discussion, especially today as we celebrate Mediterranean Day, and a reminder that this region needs our cooperation more than ever. I would also like to thank AMWAJ for organizing this conversation. Some of you may not know that AMWAJ means waves in Arabic. I think it's a powerful symbolism because waves link shores, carry stories, and bring change across borders. And in many ways, what AMWAJ does and what we journalists aim to do is exactly that, allowing knowledge, concerns, solutions, voices to travel across the Mediterranean. So, when we talk about complex environmental phenomena, the first people to feel the change are always the local communities. In our case, the fishermen. These communities have a deep practical knowledge from years of observing the water, reading the weather, and understanding marine life rhythms. They know the sea better than anyone because it is their profession, their identity, and their home. They are the first to detect unusual phenomena like mucilage and to alert scientists and authorities. The disappointing reality is that in Greece, research on sea snot remains fragmented, and no major study has ever been funded to assess the overall impact of mucilage on fisheries, on ecosystems, or coastal communities, which makes the observations and the experiences of local fishermen even more critical. And in fact, scientists themselves rely heavily on this local knowledge to understand and track the phenomenon. I also need to mention that most people outside these communities that are affected had never even heard of sea snot, but fishermen, the ones directly affected, have already seen, touched, and struggled with it. They know its texture, the timing, the smell, the consequences. And this is why their first-hand experience was essential to our investigation. So before starting my fieldwork, I first made sure I fully understood the phenomenon by consulting research centers, university scientists, and marine observatories. And once I had a solid scientific foundation, I moved to on-site reporting in the affected areas. I spent time with fishermen on their boats, observing their daily routines, and documented their experience through interviews, photographs, and material they shared with me, some of which I have included in this presentation. And I can share with you today. And after completing the fieldwork, I returned once again to the scientific community to cross-check the information, validate the fishermen's accounts, and ensure that every element of the story was supported by evidence. And this is exactly why platforms like Journalismfund Europe really matter, because field reporting is irreplaceable. And it was their support that made it possible for us to be on the ground. You can read every scientific paper, but nothing compares to looking into the eyes of someone who has spent 40 years at the sea and tells you something is not right anymore. So earlier, my colleagues from Turkey described how the sea snot phenomenon appeared dramatically in the Sea of Marmara. That is where it becomes visible first. But it doesn't stay there. The Sea of Marmara is directly connected to the northern Aegean through the Dardanelles. And if an overwhelming event happens in one basin, it will eventually affect the next. And this is what happened in Greece. The last major outbreak occurred in 2021 in the northern Aegean around Alexandroupoli, Limnos, and Samothraki. It was intense, long-lasting, and linked to what happened in the Marmara during the same period. It spread westward towards the small city of Kavala on the mainland of Greece, and all fishing activity was completely stopped for nearly 4 months. So the first question we asked was that an isolated incident or does it still appear in these regions? As already mentioned, sea snot forms when waters become overloaded with nutrients, typically from untreated sewage and industrial waste and agricultural runoff from rivers, combined with warming seas and limited circulation. And while it can be transported from Turkey to Greece, as it happened in 2021, This is also deeply a local dimension. The area north of Alexandroupolis is dominated by agricultural land, where fertilizers often wash into the sea. Many local coastal villages, especially those with fewer than 1,500 inhabitants, lack biological wastewater treatment. And there is even a fertilizer plant in the region, which reports indicate that releases around 700 tons of nitrates per year. Additional nutrients enter the sea through rivers flowing from Bulgaria and Turkey. So it's important to mention that when nitrogen and phosphorus are out of balance in the water, combined with sunlight, it creates ideal conditions for mucilage formation. So we saw that the causes of the phenomenon are ultimately shared across regions, but local conditions shape the intensity of each outbreak. In Greece, although there have been years when the phenomenon was strong and more visible, in most years it remains limited to specific areas. Yet, even then, it really affects the fishing communities who depend on these waters for their livelihood. And policies also differ from country to country. For instance, as a European member, Greece faces stricter environmental regulations than Turkey. But gaps in local infrastructure still make the Thracian Sea particularly vulnerable. And the impacts vary, but they primarily affect fishing activity in Greece. Fishermen in Alexandroupolis, Limnos, and Samothraki reported the same pattern. Mucilage lasts 2 to 3 months, usually from February to March. Their nets become unbearably heavy, forming a visible barrier that fish avoid, meaning almost 3 months of lost income for small-scale fisheries. And we must remember that these communities live in constant dialogue with the sea. It was remarkable that even the effects of climate change were evident in their observations. I remember one fisherman said, "When you see a red mullet full of eggs in October, something is wrong. This fish should have spawned in May or June. Seasons don't exist anymore," he said. So in the end, their shared experiences connect scientific data with a lived reality. And this is where community-based reporting becomes essential. Fishermen and local communities observe shifts in ecosystems long before anyone else. And as we already said, they are often the ones who first alert scientists and universities. But many of them in our conversations shared that they had become deeply discouraged. They had been reporting their situation for years, sending emails to ministries, writing letters, and receiving no response. Even though the ministry had promised compensation, this never happened. So when when we show up and they finally feel that someone is actually paying attention to their problem, they feel heard and seen. Especially when through our conversations, they realize that this is not an isolated issue. Their colleagues in Turkey and Italy face the very same challenges. And I need to say that through this process, before we change the slide, dear Burak, another truth emerged that there is a widening gap between science, policy, and the communities who live with the sea every single day. Fishermen report the problem, scientists don't always have the support to investigate it, and local responses remain slow, fragmented, or sometimes not non-existent. And getting answers from authorities is always one of the biggest challenges in environmental reporting. As journalists, we often have to insist, to follow up repeatedly, and to push for accountability, especially when a problem has been ignored for years. And this is why giving visibility to local experiences actually matters. Because once the issue becomes public and cross-border, institutions can no longer remain silent. And I want to highlight a powerful example from Greece, the Amorgorama initiative, which is in the next slide. You can see the picture. that demonstrates how local knowledge can really shape policy. Local fishermen of the island of Amorgos, noticing fish stocks collapsing, voluntarily stopped fishing during the reproductive months of April and May, and they used their boats to clean beaches that are not accessible on foot. Now, after a decade of community advocacy, in August, this practice became the first bottom-up national presidential decree, and during beach cleaning campaigns, the fishermen of Amorgos will receive some compensation, which helps balance part of the income they lose by stopping fishing. And this shows what happens when local knowledge is listened to and integrated into policy. And it also raises a critical question. Could something similar support fishing communities affected every year by marine mucilage? Of course, while long-term solution must focus on reducing untreated wastewater and nutrient pollution, we also need short-term alternatives for the people whose livelihoods depend on the sea. And at the same time, scientists warn that these episodes are not exceptions but previews. As waters warm and nutrient loads increase, such phenomena as mucilage will become more frequent and more severe, impacting fisheries, tourism, coastal economies, and every sector that depends on a healthy sea. So, to sum up, environmental journalism cannot succeed without collaboration. Pollution, warming, and marine phenomena are cross-border, and working with teams from Turkey and Italy allowed us to combine local knowledge from different sources, compare scientific data and satellite images, understand where pollutions differ or overlap, and most of all, see the full regional picture, not just a national one. And I want to share a small story that shows how interconnected this investigation became. The same week, Burak was reporting along the Argin River in Turkey. I was on the Greek side on the Evros River. A river that begins from Bulgaria, flows through Turkey, and ends up in the delta in Greece. It took us a moment to realize we were talking about the exact same river, just with different names. And I would like to close with something that stayed with me throughout this investigation. And it was this reaction of fishermen in every region I visited when they realized their story would finally not remain confined to their island, that it would cross borders, and that their colleagues in Turkey and Italy were experiencing something similar. Through this collaboration, we were slowly building a regional narrative and not an isolated national one. And I believe this is the essence of today's event. Environmental journalism is not only about exposing problems, it is about connecting the dots across communities, amplifying unheard voices, and creating the condition for collective action. Thank you again for the invitation and for the space to share my work.
Thank you, Anastasia, and thank you everyone else who preceded her. I join them in thanking AMWAJ and Journalismfund, and I go quickly to the Italian part, which is slightly different from the situation in the Marmara Sea. So in Italy, especially in the Adriatic Sea, mucilage it's an old problem. And so one of the challenges was to find new ways to report on it, highlighting new voices, understanding new impacts and new solutions of this problem. Next slide. So in the Adriatic Sea, which has some similar characteristics to the Marmara Sea, so kind of a closer sea with high eutrophisation, mucilage is a phenomenon well known from the 18th century, which was very high in the late 80s, 90s, and until 2007. Last big event of mucilage was in summer 2024. The images that you see here and also in the other slides of the presentation are from my colleague Filippo Ferraro, who documented mucilage in the higher north of Trieste last year. This is actually very interesting because scientists had time to really study this phenomenon and understand all the different factors, among which there are environmental pressures, and mostly the work, like of course also fertilizers from rivers, pollution, and as well the warming of the Mediterranean Sea, which impacts mostly the northern Adriatic among different seas, is the one that experienced the highest discrepancy in temperatures. So we can go to the next slide, where I just slightly say how I decided to look at this old problem in a new way, and understand that mucilage is a symptom of an ecosystem screaming for help somehow. So I looked at the situation in the Adriatic Sea, and as well the seabed mucilage in the Tyrrhenic Sea, so on the other coast of Italy. And I also dedicated a lot of space to understanding what are the solutions put in place for this phenomenon. So next slide. This is also a very beautiful photo for my colleague Cilla Fasciani for another project that we did on the Adriatic Sea, because the area of the Po Delta and the northern Adriatic Sea has experienced several environmental crises, among which the invasion of alien species like the blue crab, which really changed the ecosystem, and that have only been worsened by mucilage in the last years. Especially these caused severe death toll of mollusks. So we can see in the next slide how I focus on two communities, the one in Chioggia, which produced clams, and one in Porto Novo, which produced white mussels. In these two areas, but many other areas could be taken into account. In the last years, there have been epidemics among mollusks who completely died. And for example, in Porto Novo, the fishermen had to completely stop fishing this local white mussel, which is basically the identity of the whole community. And also, as we know in Italy, like the cuisine of this area and the tourism were completely connected to these little mollusks, which are now disappearing. Same goes in Chioggia for the clams. Also, so I am investigating about how the subsidies for these have been shared, the economical impact, the societal impact, and also how maybe in some areas the establishing of marine protected areas, so areas where sea is especially protected and fishing is not allowed, could improve the well-being of these areas. Then we can go on the next slide, where I'm talking of another aspect of my project, of the Italian part of the project of mucilage, which is in the Gulf of Naples. Here, mucilage has not been an extremely visible problem, but seabed mucilage is an extremely bad problem. In the Gulf of Naples is a highly inhabited area, so in somehow we can see a comparison between the area of Istanbul in the Marmara Sea, highly inhabited, terrible discharge systems for wastewaters, and small attempts of restoration. This is the case of a small marine protected area, where unfortunately you can see that while it is a marine protected area, so receiving funds for environmental protection and marine restoration problems, there is inside the area an untreated water discharge, which, as you can see, this is a photo of last week. It's full of pollution, which also worsens the seabed mucilage problem in an area which has corals and Posidonia and precious environment. So let's go to the next slide. So I investigated how this marine restoration works, what is endangering the project of marine restoration, which is something for which European community is spending a lot of money. You can see here, I followed the path of Posidonia seeds from this guy who, for passion, collects all of them, and then the scientists that are planting them, and the issues connected to the fact that this area is still highly polluted, and so the marine restoration is endangered. We thought it was very important, as also Anastasia said in her part, to focus also on the solution part of investigating the issues connected to the Mediterranean, also to see what is applied in one area, what cannot be applied in someone else, some other area. and therefore fomenting our collaboration. I think for the ups and downs of collaborating journalism already been said a lot by my colleagues. So since we are now in a rush, I leave space for questions. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much to all of you. For me, this has been really, really interesting. I feel like I didn't fully understand the whole marine mucilage phenomenon, and this has been very enlightening also to have the different examples from each of your regions and to better understand also the local consequences for local populations, for marine biodiversity, and also the importance, as you were mentioning, all of you, of giving voice of local populations and how it's important for them to feel like this matter is listened and it's also shared the same problem by other people in different regions. So maybe with this shared force, things can be improved in the future, or at least giving visibility to this phenomenon. So we have some questions already. I think it's very good to have this moment, and you were perfectly on time. Don't worry, it's very good. So we still have 15 minutes or a little bit more. There is one question from the audience. I also have a few, so let's see how the discussion goes. There is Gabriel from Romania that asks if this phenomenon that has been presented and researched also if it has been generated by accidents caused by wastewater leakage, and if so, if the authorities have been questioned about this. I don't know if any of you has maybe some insights of this coming from accidental wastewater leakage.
I'd like to something a little one. To be honest, we haven't focused on the speech fully, but yes, it has drawn criticism. However, officials respond by saying they've issued fines for it. Just all. And it remains there. So, discussion proceed.
Maybe I can
Nothing.
add that mucilage is complex to investigate because it's not only a human-driven phenomenon. It has also natural causes. The case of the Adriatic Sea shows that mucilage was an issue in this sea way before industrialization, like beginning of industrialization, but not. For example, it was very strong in the 90s, and then all of a sudden came back in 2024. So in the Adriatic Sea, I'm saying. So that's why I think one of the challenges in our work was that while consequences are terrible on communities, it's hard to point on one specific cause, the pollution of one river, when there are so many polluted rivers flowing into the Marmara and as well in the Adriatic Sea. And there are, for example, for the case of Italy, some areas where the river is much more polluted, but there is no mucilage, while others where the conditions create this phenomenon and pollution becomes much more visible, but sometimes they might be even less polluted than others. And that's why the multi-layer phenomenon causes the fact that it's hard to point fingers and also to call responsibilities. Of course, what Burak said, that in the case of Marmara Sea, there is no, like the wastewater treatment is not, has not been fixed. That's an issue. But overall, like beyond mucilage, that's terrible for marine environments. And I leave the word to you if you want to add something else.
Do you want to add something, Burak? I think that was already very clear, but if Anastasia or Burak wants to add something on this question, otherwise we'll pass to the next one.
I think my friends, my colleagues explained, so I am also checking the messages, so there is
Yes.
some more questions, so I think it is better to move.
Yes, very good. Thank you. Thank you for giving this information.
I would like to add that we would be lucky if it was just an incident of one event. It's a more complex and a more long lasting phenomenon that it's created from how humans f- act on the environment for years and not just one time, one event. Apart from this, everything my colleagues said, it's to the point.
Thank you, Anastasia. We'll take another question from Jade from United Kingdom. That I think it can be nice at this point of the webinar to also, it's not the last one, but start closing it on advices that you can give to individuals who want to start their own cross-border investigation. So how do you go about finding who to partner with? I think this was very well introduced by Alev, but maybe you have further examples. And I will add on the AMWAJ side that we are very much open to actually connect the dots, and these spaces are made for this. So please bear in mind that we always have our doors open for this, for connecting journalists also with experts and any other kind of network that we might have at our hands. So yes, you can always count on us for this, but maybe our journalists today have further advice on how to better find partners for
Okay, then I have some notes we have learned in this that especially to those just starting out in freelancing, one by one, step by step. Choose the right grant or support institution. Journalism Fund is a good example. It's a flexible and supportive, but some institutions with rigid boundaries and a lack of prioritizations over users can run into problems. And first. Second, don't just focus on financial supports. Some institutions offering kind support, equipment support, travel support. Recently, some organizations have even offered editorial support, for example, in science journalism, or mentorship supports in areas you want to specialize it. I highly recommend use these. Three, as freelance journalists, we often juggle multiple tasks simultaneously to maintain a consistent standard of living, actually. But please keep to one major research project at the same time. Others may be more limited and have a smaller scope. Otherwise, you won't be able to handle it. Make flexible and adaptable plans. I assure you, your schedule often won't work as planned. There will be many unforeseen setbacks. Therefore, develop a strategy that can be adapted to new circumstances and can be adjusted. For example, if you have identified some resources from the outset and one or more you deem important don't resonate with you, this can happen. Be sure to have backup resources. Your plans should be flexible, but also detailed. For example, if you're planning to travel, it's best to have a rough idea of the timing, the people you'll visit, and how long you'll stay before applying for a grant. Some grants provides cover travel expenses, some don't. Like Journalism Fund, cover your travel expenses such as food, drinks, and other expenses. Be aware of this, otherwise you may need to allocate significant portions of your grant to these needs. And decide who you'll work with by thoroughly vetting the candidates and discussing the project at least a few times beforehand. You might be seeing this person or people for the first time. They're also likely good people, but working together can be challenging. Both you and both them. Don't forget, you'll be far away from each other. Your ability to address potential issues will be limited. And I've learned all this. We managed it by the hard way and takes time.
Thank you very much, Alev. Thank you for all of this. Maybe the others have things to add, but first I will give the floor also to Anna Coens because we're very happy that she's with us today. So Anna, she's Impact and Outreach Manager for Earth Investigation Program at Journalism Fund. And as you all have here, the team is very, very lucky to count with their support. So I'm sure, Anna, you have some advices for our audience today for this question.
I do want to say a couple of words about this, but first let me start with saying thank you so much, AMWAJ, for organizing this webinar, and thank you so much to the journalists for their fantastic presentations. I was actually wondering how you would speak about the same investigation from different points, and I think it worked amazingly well, presenting very different aspects. Thank you really very much. I learned myself a lot. But coming to Jade's question, so I think there are a few aspects to consider, and Alev pointed out many important issues that we also see in the teams that we support. And I think, there are a few ways to start, and I would not underestimate the willingness of organizations like AMWAJ or Journalism Fund or Global Investigative Journalist Network to help and facilitate this process. And for example, if you go to Journalism Fund website, I put the link in the, I'll put it for everyone now, the link in the chat now. You can see profile pages for journalists who had previously received Journalism Fund grants that is worked on a cross-border collaboration most of the time. And then you can pick country or the type of investigation they worked on. You can see their projects, so you can directly see what was the result of their work. It's not just meeting someone who tells you they are interested in something, but you can already see what kind of work and how they approached a certain topic, for example, and what methodology they used. So that is one. Another one is attending conferences, whether in person or maybe online events like this, on the topics that you think are related or you think a certain speaker may be an interesting colleague in the future, so that you can get in touch directly, not reaching out of the blue, but kind of referring to something they maybe said and that you feel is relevant. It also allows you to build I think a deeper thematic connection sometimes, or again, refer to maybe methodology that you want to apply in your investigation. You can also contact us directly if you, let's say, look for a journalist in France and among all the journalists listed on our website, you wouldn't find one, and you have a more specific question, you could ask us, and you can ask us to pass your request directly. We don't share contacts for data protection reasons, but we can pass your request to those people, and we are happy to do that. And what is, I think, very important, especially when you start working with someone you had not met in person, perhaps, or met very briefly, is writing a memorandum of understanding. Because we know that sometimes also while applying for funds, applications and proposals can be put together a bit hastily from the practical point of view. So you know the topic you want to work on, you kind of know where to go. So, okay, some travel costs, yeah, and you get editors on board. But then, all right, do we have a shared byline or everybody runs their own byline? How do we refer to the project? Do we expect, just national articles, or we want also to feature this cross-border, over the border angle in every story. So this is also something that you really need to be clear about while starting. Who publishes when, who's in charge of what. If somebody writes, I don't know, produces a documentary and somebody just publishes a 1,000 words article, is it considered an equal contribution? Maybe they did the same research. So there are a lot of very practical questions that you need to sit together and look at and say, look, I'll be happy to do it this way and not so happy if something happens this way. And also think, with regards to funding, what would happen if one of you is very sick? Because usually funding is linked to the project, not to one single person participation. It goes for more funders, not just Journalism Fund. So this is really, really crucial, because I think otherwise your experience of cross-border collaboration, especially if you're just starting with that, may be tinted by some tension about the issues you didn't discuss in the very beginning. And feel free to reach out to us for setting up collaboration or some advice on that.
Thank you very much. And I think that has been super helpful for our participants today. And the message is clear. So now we hope to see many more investigations coming, and we hope to give them a place and a voice also in AMWAJ. So we are very happy on this collaboration. Before we close, well, there is one more question from Anna. I don't know if maybe some of you have seen this article that she actually shared from Reuters about mussels revealing microplastic pollution increase in Greece. Maybe Anastasia, that's maybe a question for you. And what did you think about the results that the article show? But I'm not sure you have seen this article. If you haven't, no problem.
To check.
It's on the chat. It's good that it's there. We can all check it after. Maybe if you want to add something on that, or keep the discussion maybe for later on with Anna on that.
Yes, I haven't seen this article, but the researches of Hellenic Certain of Marine Research are very important and big part of our investigation. So it's very good to see actually this article in Reuters that is highlighting this event. And I will take a close look when we finish it.
Yes. Okay, thank you, Anastasia. Maybe if any of you have something else to add for the advice part, but I think Anna and Alev, they cover it very well. But of course, if you have something to add, you can do it. Otherwise, you see in the chat that Anna has been sharing the relevant links that she has been mentioning. You can also subscribe to the intro webinar that she's adding there. So all of this can be very useful for journalists that are looking forward to work on new investigations. So I think we're gonna close the session. I really want to thank once again to the speakers today for making this possible. Also to Anna and the whole Journalism Fund team for supporting all of this investigation and giving place for this on in-depth environmental reporting. So thank you very much. Also to my colleagues from AMWAJ, because they do a fantastic work in bringing all of this together. And for the participants today also, because these webinars are always very active and very, very nice to discover what you're working on, where you come from. And this is really, once again, the whole point of AMWAJ, creating this community. So we're very proud of all of this. So thank you and good luck with the end of the investigation. As we have mentioned already, this will be published by AMWAJ and we'll also collaborate with our media partners, trying to give in maybe also like a publication on other media outlets around the Mediterranean. So we'll be there supporting you on that as well. Thank you. And just a last note, the record will be shared in a follow-up email. So don't worry, I realized that someone in the someone from the questions, Emerson, or I forgot the name, sorry. No, it was someone else. He
Gabriel.
lost connection. Yes, exactly. But this will be shared, the recording. Okay, so don't worry, you can listen to it again. Thank you very much and have a good day. Looking forward to reading the investigation.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Anastasia.
Claudia.
Thank you so much for this event. Thank you.
Thank you.
See you
Bye-bye.
again. Bye.
Bye.